What up? This is Rapids, and so the real reason why Little Tim beat his charges is because of the state he lives in. You see, people that live in states that have laws that allow you to defend yourself will beat charges like what Little Tim was facing. When you live in a more blue state, typically the more bluer the state, the less of a chance you're going to have to be a situation like that. Because with K Flock, he lives in a state that's very blue, and you're not even really allowed to have that whoop. You know, you can't even have a whoop out there, let alone defend yourself with one. So that should be all you need to know about how K Flock's journey is going to go when it comes to preparing for trial and trying to beat those charges. Because, you know, in New York, that's an area where you are not allowed to have that whoop. In Georgia, where Little Tim stayed, you can have that whoop on you and you can use it. Same thing for Florida. In Florida, it's the same type of thing. In Texas, it's the same type of thing. So, you know, when you're in these states that are usually red, you know, they have these laws where if you're not a felon, you know, you typically will be able to defend yourself if something happens and you got to protect yourself. That's how DaBaby was able to escape multiple situations where he had to, you know, up that whoop on somebody. And he was able to beat that because he lives in an area down south. Usually the down south areas that are more red, you know, you can usually, you know, have your justice when it comes to defending yourself. The bluer the state, usually, you know, it can become more of a gray area if you're ever in a situation where you got to defend yourself or even carry. You know, even have that whoop on you. You can't really have your whoop on you in these states where they're deep blue. So it looks like, you know, with K Flock, you know, there's really not much he can do because where he lives, you know, he's in an area that doesn't really allow that. You know, you're not really allowed. You got to escape, you know, because there's laws in some of these other states, like I mentioned, where, you know, you're not required to run away or anything. That's how Zimmerman was able to, you know, get away with what he did. It's like if there's any sign of any type of self-defense, you're allowed that. You're allowed that option of self-defense. You know, stand your ground, they call it. And, you know, it's something that you can use in those states where, you know, you're not going to necessarily be considered a criminal if the situation, you know, adds up. If they look into it and they determine that your situation required, you know, use of force or anything like that, you know, they'll be like, okay, so they'll call it a justified situation, you know, a justified whoop. So, you know, basically, you know, it depends on where you live, basically. And there's cities and states around this country that don't allow that. You know, you're not allowed to up that whoop. You gotta flee, and even if you're upping that whoop in self defense, and you know you gotta whoop out and bug out on somebody, to save your own life, even, you know, you might not necessarily be cleared if you're, you know, if you're in a state that's one of those, you know, liberal sanctuary types cities or states. You know, those are the areas where, you know, they're not tolerating nothing like that. So, you know, I'm just letting y'all know, you know what's going down. You know, depending on what state you're in, you might not be able to, you know, defend yourself in a situation, depending on, you know, where you live. So, you know, with K Flock, I don't know if he can even get out of that jam. But if he was in Georgia, he probably would have been out on bail. Cause what it sounds like, the op was basically up against him and running up on K Flock. I mean, that's just, I don't know the complete details about what happened with K Flock, but I know enough to where I looked into it, and it looks like it was a situation. It wasn't just like, it didn't sound like it was just K Flock bugging out on somebody. It sounded like an op was running by him, and it almost sounds like the op ran up on him. And it sounded like K Flock had to up that whoop and defend himself to save his own life. So, look, let me know what y'all think in the comment section. I'm gonna leave some links for y'all. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that. I'm up out of here.